If you're like most people who grew up with Christmas, you were told a very simple story. Santa Claus is a kind old man in a red suit. He drinks hot cocoa, laughs all the time, flies around with reindeer, and gives presents to children who behave. He's gentle, harmless, soft. But what if I told you that this version of Santa is only about 100 years old, and that before he became the smiling mascot of Christmas, he was something very different? A wandering god, a winter judge, a spirit who watched you from the dark, not to reward you, but to decide what you deserved. Tonight on World Mysteries, we're going to peel back the red velvet curtain and look at the real origins of Santa Claus. Before Coca-Cola, before shopping malls, before ho-ho-ho and plastic reindeer. And after you hear this story, you may never look at Christmas the same way again. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to World Mysteries, because this is just one of many legends the modern world has tried to sanitize. Now turn down the lights, and let's go back to a winter night, long before the word Santa even existed. Once upon a time, in a small village somewhere in northern Europe, no one remembers exactly where, because history has a way of blurring its edges, there lived a boy named Elias. Elias was 10 years old, thin as a branch, with dark hair that fell into his eyes. He lived with his parents in a wooden house on the edge of a dense, ancient forest. In summer, the trees were beautiful. In winter, they looked like a wall of black teeth. The villagers feared the forest, not because of wolves or bandits, but because of something older. They had a saying, whispered only when the candles burned low: "On the longest nights, he rides." No one ever said who he was. They didn't have to. Everyone knew the stories. Every year, as winter deepened and the snow piled higher than the doors, Elias would hear the adults talking in low voices. "Make sure the children behave. Don't leave the house after dark. If he comes, don't look him in the eyes." Elias thought it was just a way to scare children into behaving. Until one night, he heard the sound. It began as a faint vibration in the air. Not wind, not footsteps. Something metallic, distant, rhythmic, a jingle. Not the bright, happy sound you hear in shopping malls. This was slower, heavier, like chains being dragged over frozen ground, like iron bells that hadn't rung in 100 years, suddenly remembering how. The sound got closer. Elias went to the door, heart pounding. He knew he shouldn't open it. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially for children who grow up on the edge of legends. He cracked the door open. Cold air knifed into the house. The world outside was washed in silver moonlight. Snowflakes drifted down, glowing against the black skeletons of the trees. And there, at the border where the village met the forest, he saw a shape. Tall, larger than any man he had ever seen. Wrapped in a heavy cloak of fur, dark and rough, with a hood pulled low over its face. A long white beard spilled out from the hood, glimmering faintly like frost in starlight. On its back, the figure carried a great sack. Not bright and red and embroidered with gold, but weathered and dark, like something that had seen centuries of use. At its belt hung iron chains and bells that clanged softly as it moved. Elias couldn't see the eyes. The hood cast too much shadow, but he felt them, measuring him, weighing him, judging him. He wanted to slam the door. He couldn't move. This was not the Santa Claus from storybooks. This was something else. Some of the villagers called him Saint Nicholas. Some called him the Winter Rider. Some simply said, "He's the one who knows." Knows what? Knows whether you've been good or not. To understand who this being really was, we have to leave Elias for a moment and travel back, farther than most Christmas specials ever dare. Long before the word Christmas even existed, the people of Northern Europe feared the winter. Winter wasn't cute. Winter was deadly. It could freeze your crops, starve your family, and swallow you in a snowstorm without a trace. So they told stories of a god who rode through the sky on the darkest nights of the year. A one-eyed wanderer with a long beard and a heavy cloak who led a ghostly procession through the clouds. His name was Odin. Odin did not ride a sleigh with reindeer. He rode an 8-legged steed named Sleipnir, a spectral horse that could cross worlds. During the winter festival called Yule, people believed Odin soared across the sky with the dead, hunting, judging, watching. Children would leave out hay or carrots in their boots for Sleipnir, hoping Odin would be pleased and reward them. Sound familiar? Cookies, milk, stockings. The roots of our modern Christmas traditions sink deep into this older, stranger soil. When Christianity spread across Northern Europe, the church faced a problem. People were deeply attached to Odin and their winter rituals. The church could ban the old god outright, or it could do something smarter. So the stories began to shift. The wild, unpredictable winter god slowly turned into a saint. Not a thunderous, all-seeing, one-eyed warrior, but a bishop. A protector of the poor, a giver of gifts. His name became Saint Nicholas. But something of the old Odin remained. Saint Nicholas still appeared in winter. He still knew which children had been good or bad. He still carried a staff. He still watched unseen from the cold outside. In some places, people said he wasn't alone. He walked with dark helpers, shadowy figures, or even horned creatures like Krampus, beings who punished the wicked, stuffed them into sacks, and dragged them away into the dark. In other words, Santa wasn't always the good cop. Sometimes he was the judge. Back in the village, Elias could still hear the bells. The figure stepped closer, snow crunching under massive boots. Elias wanted to close the door, but something held him there, like invisible fingers gripping his shoulders. His parents were asleep. They had no idea he was standing at the threshold between their warm house and whatever this was. The cloaked figure stopped a few steps away from the door. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. The fur cloak hung from him like the pelt of some enormous animal. His beard was long, braided in places with bits of metal and bone. The bells at his belt were stamped with symbols Elias didn't recognize, old runes worn smooth by time. For a long moment, the being said nothing. Then, in a low voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, he spoke. "You opened the door on the longest night," he said. "You are braver than most." His accent was strange, old, the kind of voice you imagine when reading words carved into stone. Elias swallowed. "Who are you?" he whispered. The hood shifted. For a brief second, Elias saw something like an eye, just one, glinting in the shadows. Not bright, not cruel, just incredibly, impossibly tired. "Some call me Nicholas," the figure said. "Some called me Odin, some don't dare say any name at all." Elias realized then that he was speaking to something that had existed long before his village, long before his ancestors, maybe long before his gods. "Are you?" Elias hesitated. "Are you here to give gifts?"
Do you bring gifts?
The figure let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. "Gifts," he said softly. "That is what they say now, isn't it?" His gaze seemed to pass through the boy, into the house behind him, into his memories, into his heart. Once, the figure continued, people understood winter. They knew it was not a game. They knew there was a price for everything. They knew that someone had to keep the balance. His gloved hand moved slightly and the bells clinked. Children who were kind received apples, nuts, bread, simple things. Children who were cruel received other lessons. Elias felt a cold deeper than the wind. He thought of the times he had lied, the times he had been selfish, the times he had wished bad things on others. Could this being see all of that? "So what do you see when you look at me?" Elias asked, his voice barely a breath. The ancient Santa, if that's what he was, regarded him for a long, heavy moment. "I see a heart that is not perfect," he said slowly, "but trying, and that is more than I can say for many." The words hit Elias harder than any scolding. The figure shifted the sack on his back. "The world no longer wants me as I am," he murmured. "They prefer a softer story, a softer man, a softer winter. They dress me in red, paint a smile on my face, and send me into commercials." He leaned closer. "But winter has not changed," he whispered. "Snow can still bury, cold can still kill, and I still see." Elias shivered, not from the temperature, but from the feeling of being completely known, as if his entire life had been laid out and read like a book in a single instant. Will you take me?" he asked, sounding much younger than his 10 years. The figure's head tilted. "Do you wish to be taken?" "No," Elias said quickly. I don't want to be bad." For the first time, something in the air shifted. The presence seemed a little less heavy, a little less sharp. The being extended a gloved hand and placed it gently on Elias's shoulder. The leather was cold, but beneath it, Elias felt a deep, steady warmth, like a fire buried in a mountain. "Then remember this night," the figure said. "Remember that someone is watching, not to catch you in one mistake, but to see what you truly are, over time." The bells rang softly as if answering his words. Be kind when no one is looking. Speak truth when it would be easier to lie. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is worth more than cookies left by the fireplace. Elias nodded, eyes stinging. The figure straightened up, turning toward the forest. The wind rose around them, pulling at the fur cloak, scattering snow into spinning ghosts. "Will I ever see you again?" Elias called out. The ancient Santa paused. "You will," he said, "but you may not recognize me." And with that, he walked back into the trees. The bells grew quieter with each step, until they merged with the wind and vanished entirely.
Come with me, if you dare.
In the morning, the villagers found Elias asleep just inside the door, cheeks red from the cold. They told him it must have been a dream, but in the snow outside the house, right where the figure had stood, there was a single enormous footprint. And inside Elias's coat pocket he found something that had not been there the night before. A small, carved figure of a man with one eye, a long beard, and a cloak. He kept it for the rest of his life. Centuries passed. The world changed. Artists in Europe and then America began to redraw this old winter judge into something more marketable. Writers softened his stories. Illustrators fattened his belly, brightened his clothes, and put a twinkle in both eyes instead of just one. In the 1930s, Coca-Cola commissioned a series of Christmas ads that would lock the image into place. Santa, red suit, white fur trim, round belly, laughing mouth, rosy cheeks, the version we all know today. The mysterious wanderer of the winter sky became a brand. The iron bells became jingle bells. The heavy fur cloak became a cozy costume. The ancient god became a man who exists to sell holidays. But somewhere, in the shadows of fireplaces and at the edges of frozen forests, the older story still breathes. In every warning to be good, because Santa is watching, a piece of Odin still looks through the mask. In every mention of naughty or nice, the ancient judge still weighs our hearts on scales older than Christianity, older than our calendars, older than our entire idea of what Christmas is. You can choose to believe that Santa is just a cute character invented for children. Or you can choose to believe that behind the shopping bags and inflatable decorations, there is something older, a presence that walks the longest nights of the year. A watcher who remembers when winter was a test of survival, not a photo opportunity. A quiet, patient judge. And maybe, just maybe, on some freezing night, if you step outside and listen carefully, you might hear it too. Not the cheerful clink of mall music, but the heavy, echoing jingle of iron bells. If this story made you feel differently about Santa Claus, let me know in the comments. Do you think the ancient winter god is really gone, or just hiding behind a red suit? And if you want more legends like this, dark origins, forgotten gods, and the hidden side of the symbols we take for granted, make sure you subscribe to World Mysteries, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with someone who still thinks Santa is only cute. Because behind every tradition, there's a truth the modern world has tried to bury. And here, we dig it back up.